I've got wood in today's video. My mother would be so proud. Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Matt and I'm back with another video. Today we are talking about bench work. I have completed the bench work for my 26th Street station and I'm excited to tell you how I did it. My original intention for this video was going to be kind of a how-to video showing you step by step the process of building bench work so that you could replicate it for yourself. I've done a video like that in the past and I just wanted to update it with the techniques I used here. I started working on the bench work over Christmas break and I just kind of got a good head of steam underneath me, and I didn't want to stop to grab a camera and try to set up a shot and walk through this is what I'm doing here and there and blah blah blah. So I didn't do that. So instead what we're going to do today is I'm going to talk you through and show you the completed bench work, and then I'm going to augment it with some pictures I took during the build process, and hopefully between those two things you can kind of get a good idea of what I did, and then you can take it from there. I'll link in the description my other video that kind of shows more of the process of building bench work so that you can kind of see just generally how I build bench work, and this is kind of an offshoot of the techniques I used in that video. Let's talk about my goals for this bench work. What I really wanted was bench work that served two major purposes. One, I wanted it to look good because I plan on taking this to shows. I want to show it off. I want people to see it, and I want it to be just visually pleasing. And second, it needs to be tough as nails because I'm going to be throwing in the back of my SUV. I'm going to be wheeling it around all over the place. It's going to be sort of handled, used, and abused. So I want it to be just absolutely rock solid, so that it comes together perfect every single time and I don't have any kind of issues with it later on. My approach for this bench work was only slightly different because of all that, but I think the results are good. Let's talk about a little bit more about what this is. So this is two separate modules that connect together, and I'll show you how they connect together in a second. But they are on legs with wheels on them. I can wheel them around. I can take the legs off and all that. The way these are constructed, these are I call it box framed. I'm not sure what the real technique is called, but essentially you're creating a box with dimensional lumber, and then you're applying a plywood top on top of that, right? It's the same technique I used to build this. You can see it in the other video. Did it slightly different here. What I ended up doing was I used 1x4s to form sort of three sides of a frame, and then 1x3s to form the sort of the cross braces that run through the widthwise on the bench work. And then I inset a plywood top into this frame here so that the 1x4s that form the outside of the frame are now also my fascia, if you will, so that it adds to the strength of the frame, and it also is part of the finished look of the piece when viewed on the side. Does that make sense? I'll go ahead and show you what this looks like from underneath. So these are the 1x3s here, and this is the 1x4 sort of outer frame. You can kind of see how they line up flush with each other underneath, and then the wood plywood top just is placed on top of that. Now this isn't a normal plywood top. This is what's called edge glued ply. It's essentially like dimensional pieces of lumber that are glued edge to edge to form this sheet of wood. I've used this material to make shelves. I've used this material to make fish tank stands and that kind of thing. It looks really nice, but the biggest reason I chose this was because I can get it in basically the exact size I need it. I don't have a table saw, I have a circular saw. And the difficult thing with circular saws is creating that nice straight line when you're cutting a nice long line for things. And because I wanted this wood to slip in between these two outer pieces here, I wanted everything to kind of line up perfectly and just, like butter, just, slot the wood in place, and it would go in place, and everything would line up perfectly, and it would be all nice and square. And because I was able to get this at in dimensions of 6 feet by 18 inches, all that meant was I just needed to make one cut with a circular saw to get it down to the 5.5 feet that I needed it to be, and it would just slot right in place, and it does, and it works really, really well. I finished these, so all these boards are glued and screwed together, meaning I used wood glue, and then I screwed in 1 5/8 inch drywall screws to kind of hold everything in place. So it's going to be it's never going to move. It is really, really rock solid. One thing I did, because I wanted these outside boards to be part of like the fit and finish of the modules themselves, wanted them to look a little bit nicer. When I screwed in the boards together, so like this board here, screwing into this board here, I screwed in from the outside, but what I did was I drilled the hole a little bit larger. Then I screwed the screw in, and then on top of that, I pounded in one of these dowels. So these are dowels that are kind of used to, if you put together furniture, they're kind of the dowels that are help hold the furniture pieces together. Pounded in the dowel, secured it in place with wood glue, pounded it in, cut it flush, sanded it, put some wood fill over on top of that, sanded it again so it got down nice and smooth. And then what you get right here is a nice finished piece where you get to see the little dowels all along the outside of the modules, and it kind of gives it a rustic kind of wood look to it that I really like quite a bit.
Hey, Future Matt here. As I was editing the video, I realized I didn't really talk about the finish that I put on these pieces of wood that I have along the side here. I wanted something that looked good. I wanted it to look like old wood, and I wanted to be able to like have a nice finish to it so that it was strong. It held up to being moved around and packed in the back of a van and everything. So I got some gray wood stain and stained the wood, and as you can tell, it's not gray. I don't know what happened, but the gray turned out to be kind of a brownish black look. My original intent was to kind of match closer to the color that I have on the fascia on my main model railroad. So kind of give it like a gray, aged wood look, kind of along that lines. This ended up much darker. It kind of looks like actually like creosote soaked wood, which is actually pretty good because what I would like it to do would be to match the float bridge that I am going to model for my layout. And upon doing a lot of research, it's a pretty new bridge in 1955, and so it would have had darker creosote-soaked wood color, so a color very similar to this in 1955. So that's awesome that it turns out that way. So kind of a happy accident. Once I had stained it, I went back with wipe-on poly, and I put about 5 layers of wipe-on poly on top of this, sanding in between layers, so that it has just a real solid, strong, waterproof finish on top of it. I also put a little bit of the wipe-on poly onto the top surface of the model railroad as well, just so that it'll help sort of prevent the humidity soaking into it and potentially causing the wood to warp. So just a couple of thin coats of that on the surface to help deter that from happening. Overall, I think it turned out really good. It has that aged old wood look and feel that I'm looking for, and I think it's going to look really good once I start, putting scenery details and other things onto the layout. So yeah.
All right, let's talk about how I connect these two tables together. So connecting them is really kind of simple and easy, and actually works really, really well. I'm able to put them together and pull them apart super easy, and I'm very happy with how it turned out. These blue sort of things you see here are from DCC Concepts. These are, they call alignment dowels. These are pretty popular over in England for the sort of the type of modular railroading that those guys over there like to do. Yeah, I can tell why. They work really, really great. What you have here is you have a male end and a female end. You drill a hole once you have your tables together. Drill a hole completely through both tables to a pilot hole, if you will. And then you use that as a guide to kind of drill larger holes, which you can sort of slot these things into. What they do is when they are placed together, those dowels kind of align together, and then there's no movement. It's a really finely machined piece, and when they are slid together, your tables are it's coming together perfect every single time, which is great. On top of that, I'm using these things here. This is actually, I used this on my previous layout, which was a modular layout. And these work very, very good as well. In fact, you can probably get away with not having to purchase these if you use this method. You know, I wanted just to be extra sure that everything lined up perfectly every time for myself. So that's why I went this route. I think it's a really great route to go. It's a little expensive, but you can probably get away with it just using these. Well, these are larger bolts and then very large flat washers. And what they do is they go on the inside of your benchwork, one on one side, and you drill a hole, put the bolt through there, and then on this side here you put the other flat washer, and then you've got this wing nut, and they piece together and holds it together really, really tight. Let me actually go below the table here, and I'll show you how that works. All right, I apologize. I'm going to have to go handheld on this just because my table is pretty low. But so you see these holes right here. I'm going to take the bolt and the washer, slide it all the way through. And then on the other side, we can go ahead and put this washer on along with this wing nut and hand tighten it down. And those large washers, what they do is they really grab a lot of surface area of the wood, and they help kind of really hold the wood tight against each other. So that, along with these alignment dowels, really good for a solid connection that doesn't want to come apart at all. Here's a view of those pocket legs with the additional bracing that I've added here. I originally didn't want to add this bracing, but I found that there was a little bit of movement with those pocket legs as I was kind of pushing in the tables around, and that was causing the wheels themselves to sort of rub against the feet part of the wheel to rub against the floor, and so that wasn't great. So I didn't want to add these cross braces, but I ended up having to just to give the stiffness to the legs that I really needed. They're screwed in here. This is probably temporary. I think I'm going to replace them with like a bolt system, so I can kind of bolt these cross braces onto here, so that when I'm at shows and stuff, it's easy enough for me to bolt everything in and then pull all the bolts out, slide the legs out of the pockets to tear it down and fold everything up nicely for transport. Here are the feet. You can see here the wheels themselves, and then you can see how turning this guy here will lower a foot down in here. That's adjustable, so I can adjust the height so that not only does it keep the table from not moving around, but it also makes sure that everything remains nice and level, which is important on a model railroad so you don't have cars rolling away from you. Once I've decided that I'm okay with how these legs work, and I've used them for a little bit, and they seem like they're going to hold up well, and I'm happy with them. I'm happy with the height. So I figured all that out. I'm probably going to go ahead and stain these black, add a little bit of a wipe-on poly protectant over top of it, just so that I can finish those up and make them look a little bit nicer. But so far, they've held up pretty good. Well, that's it for today's video, folks. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, I'm really pleased overall with how these have turned out. I'm excited to continue building the layout, and now I've got really solid, great looking benchwork in which to do so. Thanks again for stopping by, everyone, and I'll see you all in another video.